Hello, this is Matthew Cheung. I'm founder of Work in Fintech, and today we'll be going through the prep session for the hackathon for the upcoming AI Summit. So, firstly, thank you to our hosts, which is Google. We'll be in the Google campus in King's Cross, and also supported by Payable, which is a pay tech company based out in Cyprus, iPushPull, which is a capital markets fintech company, and also the HG Foundation, which supports young people getting into technology. So in terms of today's setup, we're going to cover a quick introduction of myself and Fabian, who I'll introduce in a second. We'll jump into the problem statements for the hackathon themselves. And then I'm going to hand over to Fabian, who's going to talk through the Google Cloud tech stack, the different tools that are available, the different approaches that he may suggest that you might want to take for the particular challenges. And then following that, we'll jump into what you can win if you're one of the kind of first, second, and third winners in the hackathon, and some of the things to do before the event. So firstly, let me welcome Fabian. Fabian is joining us from Google Cloud. Fabian, do you want to just kind of introduce yourself, some of your backgrounds, how you got to where you are today, and what your role is today?
Of course, thanks a lot, Matt. So I'm Fabian. I'm one of the customer engineers here in the early stage startup team. And in short, that means I get to support our early stage customers adopt Google Cloud products and services. And we do that in many different ways. Sometimes it's workshops, sometimes it's for events. But I've been at Google for 2 years now. Before that, I was a student at Warwick and I did computer science. And during my time there, I was fortunate enough to do 2 internships at Google. So previously, I was in the software engineering part of the organization. And I also had some experience, founding a startup. And so in my second year of university, I was able to kind of build a social media platform for students to help connect them with small to medium-sized businesses to get work experience in something that was more relevant to what they wanted to pursue after university. So I'll be around in the day as well. So if anybody has any questions about kind of my story, my journey, how I kind of went through that process, I'll be more than happy to have a conversation and talk about some of my experiences in getting to where I am today.
And the engineer part in your job title, are you building things yourself?
Yeah, so sometimes we get to build stuff, not as much as when I was in the software engineering department. But where we do a lot of the engineering is, number one, through conversations with customers. So, AI is a new thing, and a lot of businesses are kind of struggling to understand exactly, what tools are available and how they can build their applications, especially in an enterprise-ready way. And so we have to do a lot of advising, and usually that's on the architectural side. So it's less about the, writing code, but more so through diagrams and showing how different products can be integrated with the systems they already have. Where we get to do a lot more programming and actually building things is through demonstrations. So whenever we have something that we want to showcase to a customer and try and help them see the kind of long-term vision of what a product could actually look like, then we build POCs and demos to showcase that.
Cool. Sounds very exciting. Right, so on to the actual problem statements for the hackathon themselves. So there's actually 3 different challenges or problems for you to tackle. One is the gamified personal finance assistant. So essentially gamifying the whole experience about managing and saving money. So that's one particular problem statement. We'll be sending out more details for all of these problem statements separately, and we'll discuss those at length in those documents. The second problem statement is an AI CFO for entrepreneurs. So there's lots of small business owners and solopreneurs and so on. So can you create a virtual CFO that can advise you how to manage your money, how to forecast cash flows and so on? And then the third challenge is around financial inclusion. So can you create an application or a service that's going to be able to empower underserved communities, people that don't have access to a lot of the kind of services and accounts that some people may be able to access? Can you provide something for them? So they're essentially the 3 different problem statements that you and your team will be tackling in the run-up to the event and on the day as well. But like I said, we'll send out some more details with usage requirements, features and so on that we expect to see in a much longer document. I'm going to hand over to Fabian now, and he's going to choose one of these kind of problem statements and then kind of do a bit of a demo and create some workflows around it to give you a flavor of the type of flexibility and the type of things you can do with some of those Google tools.
So before I kind of jump into some slides, and I also want to make sure I do a lot of demoing today, since I want to show you the workflows that we use and how we actually can use these tools to prototype and then take it even further. So just a quick overview on these products. I'll go into a bit more detail in just a moment. But first and foremost, obviously, we have Gemini. For those that don't know, Gemini is Google's large language model. And so that's what we've released into the public. And I'll kind of talk about some of the differences with Gemini and where it stands out and some of the capabilities that makes it quite unique. We'll then talk about Google AI Studio. And essentially, this is an application that allows you to build your own apps, whether that's using AI. So if you want to kind of have a vibe coding experience, then you can as well. But it also just allows you to prototype and play around with different prompts and then give you code snippets to help accelerate you when you're going into the development phase of the project. We then have Firebase, which is a platform that makes it really easy for you to adopt some of Google Cloud's products. Google Cloud is a platform that serves very large enterprises. And so Firebase is meant to be the kind of intermediate version of that allows developers to get started really quickly while still having all the benefits associated with Google Cloud. And lastly, we'll talk about Vertex AI, which is an end-to-end platform that covers all machine learning-esque use cases. So that's generative AI, but also predictive AI as well. So traditional machine learning, where you need to train and deploy your own models. So I'll quickly share my screen and just go through a few slides.
You just mentioned vibe coding there. That's kind of a new thing that's come around this year, right? Can you explain to people what that is?
Yeah, so I don't know where the term originated from first. But essentially, vibe coding is the idea of you building applications through the use of AI. And oftentimes that means you'll have some sort of agent that's able to, perform operations on your computer. So it could be creating files, editing files, writing files, things like that. And so rather than having to learn a programming language, understanding software engineering on a deep level, you can essentially just use a chat interface to build applications. So I'll kind of show you what that will look like today. But you can imagine you may start off with a very simple prompt, like, create me a web application that allows me to track my finances. And, originally it may create something that doesn't look how you want it to, or the functionality is not where it needs to be. And then vibe coding is all around, giving feedback to the model, making small tweaks here and there so that over time you get closer and closer to a version that you're happy with, that you may want to ship to potential users. So I've shared my screen. Can you see everything okay?
Yep.
Perfect. So before I jump into anything, I kind of want to zoom in on Gemini, because I think Gemini is a really important part of a lot of the different tools you'll see today. Gemini powers all of the stuff that we do at Google behind the scenes. And so when you look at some of our agentic code assistants and things like that, they will all be powered by Gemini. And so for those that don't know, Gemini is our multimodal generative AI model. Some will refer to it as a large language model. And essentially, the multimodal part just means that Gemini can handle different types of data. So it's not just text that you can use with Gemini, but it could be, code, images, documents, audio, or even video. And so I'll go into a bit more detail that in just a moment. Now, one thing where some people get a bit confused is, like other providers, we have different models within the Gemini family. And 2.5 Pro is the one that a lot of people love to use, just because it's our most powerful model. And so we usually recommend using a model like 2.5 Pro for coding tasks or very complex tasks. Main reason being is it has a lot of reasoning capabilities that allows it to plan before it starts executing on the task that you've set it. 2.5 Flash kind of sits in the middle. It's a very fast model, and the performance is fantastic for kind of everyday tasks. So you can imagine if you want to write a draft, for a story you want to write, or you need to write some copy for a website, then 2.5 Flash can be a great model for that. One thing that we kind of recently released is 2.5 Flash Lite. And the whole point of this model is for really high volume tasks where, in the past, it may have been too costly to use a large language model. But due to the very low price, it makes it more efficient for those tasks where you may need to process, hundreds of thousands of documents, for example. And so, yeah, I'll show you how you can play around with them as well and test them for whatever your use case will be. But those are the three main models that we offer in the Gemini 2.5 family of models. So as I said before, Gemini is multimodal, and I wanted to highlight this because I think this is one of the most unique propositions of Gemini. So with Gemini, as I said before, you can put in any type of data, and that's really powerful in and of itself, right? You can imagine there's probably lots of use cases where text data doesn't cut it, especially nowadays when we're interacting with computers. And at least this is my experience. If I want to build an application and there's a certain style that I want, the UI to look like, it's very hard for me to, write that into a prompt. And I think one thing that requires is you have a lot of experience already in the field you're trying to work in. All right. If you're not a software engineer, but you need to explain, how you want a certain animation to work, and then it can be quite difficult for you. And so being able to pass images or videos to actually showcase how you want something to behave can be really, really powerful. The other thing with that is that we actually allow you to output in different modalities as well. And so you're not just limited to text outputs, but Gemini is capable of, generating images. One interesting use case is providing an image and giving an instruction, right? So you can imagine if you take a picture and there's somebody in the background that you don't know, you may want to provide that image and provide some text to say, hey, could you remove that person from the background? And Gemini is capable of doing that. Now we also allow you to output audio. So you'll see in the next slide, I'll talk about our live API. And so if you want to build a real-time voice-to-voice kind of agent where, you can have a conversation with Gemini and Gemini has a conversation back with you, then you can also do that as well. And we've worked on a lot of products like VO3, which a lot of people have probably seen on social media, to allow you to generate videos as well. And function calls is something that is quite standard across LLMs, which allows your models to take actions. And so you can imagine if you want to tell Gemini to, switch off all the lights in your house, then it needs to be able to do that. And that's where function calls come in. I just briefly mentioned the live API. I wanted to highlight this. I can't go through everything to do with Gemini today, but I think this is one of the more impressive things I've seen. And I think especially for when you're presenting to an audience, it can be a great way to kind of captivate that attention and kind of differentiate yourself from other people. Again, it allows you to do very low latency audio to audio or video to audio use cases. And so if you want to build a voice agent or maybe something where you have a video and you can, record a video and say, hey, Gemini, what can you see right now? It'll be able to answer those type of questions. And so I'll let your imagination kind of think, how could you include this in some of the use cases that we just shared? Now, that's enough slides for now. I kind of want to now actually show you how you can get started and what tools can you use to actually play around with these things. So I'll just quickly switch over to a different tab and go through Google AI Studio. So just checking, you can see my screen okay. I'm going to make it a bit bigger.
Yep, that's good.
So this is Google AI Studio, and it's very easy to get to. You can see, obviously, you just search up Google AI Studio on Google, and you'll be able to find it. The only requirement here is that you have a Google account. And if you use YouTube or you use Google, you probably already have an account. And so you'll just log in with that and you should be able to get to the screen directly. Now, there's a few things I want to go through here. So first, you'll see on the left side here, we have different menus. So first, we have this chat interface, and that's what you see now. But we also have a separate menu for streaming, generating media, and building applications as well. So I'll go through all of those in just a moment, but I'll start off with this chat interface here. Now, this is a fantastic place for you to try out the different models. As I mentioned before, we have a few different types, and as you can see, they're all labeled here. And so if you have a use case in mind, but you're not quite sure whether 2.5 Pro is a bit overkill, or maybe 2.5 Flash is not good enough, you can play around with that here. And that can be great for optimizing your prompts as well. So you can see right now I have 2.5 Pro selected. I'm going to switch it to 2.5 Flash. And you'll see on the right-hand side here, we have a bunch of different settings that we can play around with. I'll give a brief explanation of the ones that are most important, but this is a fantastic way to play around with parameters, because if you're doing this in the code base and manually testing, it can be quite a time-consuming experience.
Is that why you just changed it to Flash rather than Pro?
The main reason for Flash is, just for the latency, right? Because 2.5 Pro is a larger model, you'll see as I hover over this, there's the latency in the bottom right there. If I select 2.5 Pro, you will see the latency increases. And so 2.5 Pro just takes longer to process. And so when I'm, quickly doing a demonstration, I want to use a model that's quite fast, so we get a quick response and we can go through things.
Cool.
The other thing you'll see is token count. This is another kind of unique proposition of Gemini, is that it has a very massive context window. So you can put a million tokens in at a time. You can kind of think of that as characters or words, like a million words or million characters. It's not exactly a one-to-one mapping, but that's a good way to kind of frame it in your mind. So, you could put an entire book inside of Gemini. I think in terms of video, you can do like a 2-hour video. So one interesting use case I've seen is someone has put an entire football match into Gemini and said, give me the timestamps and descriptions of the key events in that stream. So very, very good if you have a lot of documents that you want to pass in at once and not have to build a separate system to manage that retrieval of information.
Do you still get that if I'm just using my personal Google account? Will I still get that many tokens?
Yeah, so this is for all users, whether it's paid or free. One thing that we offer through Vertex, or Google AI Studio, is quite a generous free tier. And so I can go through some of the different quotas you have, but essentially you get a certain amount of requests free per day. And when you're using this console here, everything is free. So if you're playing around in Google AI Studio, there will be no cost associated. You won't be billed to do your account or anything like that. This is a platform truly to prototype and to encourage that everything you see in this console is for free. Yeah, so you can play around with settings like temperature, for example. When you hover over these, they give you a good explanation of what they mean. Essentially, this is how created of the models. So if you're trying to ask it to write a story, you may want a really high temperature. But if you're looking to do a task like generate SQL or take my data and pass it into JSON, you probably want a very low temperature to make it more deterministic. Again, you can play around with things like thinking budgets. I don't want to spend too much time on this just because I think there's some cooler stuff to show you, but I'll just give you a very quick example. So here I can click up here to set a system instruction. And what I might do here is say that, you are, whoops, sorry, I have caps lock on. You are a travel assistant. Oops, sorry. And I want you to tell me the key places to visit in a country. So very basic prompt, nothing fancy here. But now I've set that, Gemini has this information to know that this is what it's meant to do. So if I say, for example, England, and I pass that into the model, you'll see first is thinking, which is this reasoning capabilities. If you don't need advanced reasoning, you can just turn that off. And so you can see I haven't given it any context except from the system instruction, and it's able to identify a few of the places maybe I should visit in England. So you can see here the Cotswold, Stonehenge, and things like that. So that's just how you can play around here. So I expect you to do much more interesting things in the console. But yeah, this is how you can play around with prompts to make sure you're getting the level of performance that you want. I'll go into some more exciting stuff. So first we have the streaming capabilities. I can't actually showcase this now because I'm sharing my screen and I'm on a call. But what you can do is you can basically click on webcam or share your screen. And what Gemini will be able to do is take that video input, or if you're doing talk, that audio input, and reply to you using audio as well. And that's how you can have a full back-to-back conversation with Gemini. The other section allows you to do the generative media side of things. So one thing that I've seen people do, and I think this is related to some of the gamification use case we have today, you may want to generate videos or images. So for example, if I unlock a badge, I may want to use Veo to generate a video, or use Imagine to generate a picture that could be kind of like a collectible card. And as users complete and make progress, they unlock these different cards. Or I've seen people actually generate images of plants, and so people can have a virtual garden. So over time, their garden grows, and it's a great way to gamify any experience. Now, what I think is quite cool is we have a build setting in here, and this allows you to actually build applications using Gemini. And so I'll quickly just get up a prompt that I have taken from one of the use cases. So bear with me for 2 seconds. But one of the use cases we had was building an application that makes managing money more gamified. So I'm just going to copy and paste that over here. So you can see I'm just taking the exact description. I haven't done anything fancy here. I've just taken the prompt that we've been given. And what I can do is run that prompt. And what Gemini is now going to do is start building me an application. Now, this will take some time, maybe a minute or two, nothing too crazy. But what I've done is I've ran this just before this call, just so we can skip past this building step, and I can come back and show you that as well to show you I'm not cheating and nothing's been edited. So once it's actually generated an application, you can see here, this was the initial prompt. It did some thinking, and then it generated these files and then checked for errors. So on the left, you have this code assistant that you can have a conversation with and go back and forth. And then you also have access to all of the files it generates as well. And so even if you're someone who has programming experience, like this can be a great way to get up and running. You know, a single prompt, you can kind of see something interesting on the right here. We'll go through it and see if it works. So, you know, once you've started your project, you can go in and change things. You know, you don't have to stick to using AI. And that goes as well. You could start with code. And if you want to use AI to help speed things up, then you can obviously jump into here as well. And so let's just have a quick look at what Gemini was able to build. So I've just zoomed in, made it a bit bigger. So you can see here we have this monthly budget, which seems quite cool. We have our daily streaks. We have some AI financial tip here, and obviously I can log expenses. Let's have a quick look through it and try a few things. So here I guess I can set some saving goals. This is quite interesting. We have a trivia section, which from the looks of the loading symbol seems like this is Gemini generated questions. So let's see if maybe I can get this right. I haven't seen this before. Which financial concept? The eighth one of the world, stating he who understands it earns it, and who doesn't pays it. Let's choose compounding interest. Looks like I got it right, and let's see if it's capable of generating a new question, just to make sure things are working. What is the rule of 72 primarily used in personal finance? I have no idea. I'm just going to click the random one. Maybe it's correct. Let's try and get a question wrong to make sure that works as well. So we just had this question. So it was compounding interest. Let's select something stock market. So at least we know that's working correctly. Then we have a badges section, which seems like we can earn different badges. This one looks quite easy to do. So log your first expense. Let's do that to see if it works. So let me say Nando's. So you can see the text doesn't look too great here. So maybe that's something that we want to change. Let's just say we spent £45 on that. So we add our expense. It looks like everything updated, and it looks like it's actually generating new tips for us. So let's go to badges. Yeah, and so we've unlocked a badge. So you can see just with one sentence, and obviously here you can see I made another message where originally all of the questions were exactly the same. So just with one sentence and maybe one way to improve it, we've got something that's a pretty good starting point, right? If you wanted to, you could probably present this at the hackathon, and it's a complete application. But because you have a lot of time, you may want to change things. It's very easy to do so. So let's just try something. Here, as we said before, the text is in gray. Let's see if we can try and improve this. So when I try to look at expense, text is dark as well as the background. And we change the text color to be brighter. And then let's just say Egypt, white. And so again, the whole point of this is maybe in the future these things will be absolutely fantastic and be able to build application with no bugs or anything. But right now the whole point here is
could I sketch something out on a bit of paper and take a picture of that as a prompt?
Yeah, that would work. That would work as well. So what some people do is they'll use an application or paper to draw out a wireframe, which is just a very rough skeleton version of what you want the application to look like, and you can pass that in as well. You can also go online. There's a few websites I use to get like UI design inspiration. You can copy and paste it and say, hey, build something according to this style as well. So maybe we'll revisit that if we have some time and see that in action. But you can see here, Gemini's thinking over a few things. I'll give it a moment and then I'll jump back into this. While this is loading, actually, it might be a good time to talk about how you can actually put this in front of users. So yes, this is great, but at the end of the day, you probably want to build real world applications. And one thing you'll see here, and maybe hard to see, there's a rocket ship button. If you click this button, it will actually deploy it to Cloud Run, which is one of our Google Cloud services that allows you to host applications. And so if you wanted to share this with a friend or allow people on the day to actually play with your application, all you have to do is click this button. What it will do is look for a project. So this will be a Google Cloud project. So something you're creating in Google Cloud. And then when you select your project, you'll be able to deploy it. And now I can't do this right now just because we have a lot of security measures on our GCP projects. And because of that, I'm not allowed to create publicly accessible applications. But the process is similar. then click deploy, and it'll do that for you. So we're seeing here it's now tried. Let's see if it's was actually able to do so. So you can see it fixed the bug that we had. Let's make sure it works here as well. And so you can see over time, you know, I've spent 15 minutes or so doing this, and it's been able to actually build something that's pretty decent. I'll jump back over to this tab just to show you the one that we had live. This one, in my opinion, doesn't look as good, but still, for one simple sentence or 2 sentences, it's able to build quite a cool application, and it looks like it works as well. So pretty cool to see.
Would it create a different app every time you prompt? Like
Yeah.
the outcome of it is going to look slightly different every time.
Yeah, so every time there will be variation, just because the models, the way they work, they're quite probabilistic, meaning even if you put the same entry into them, you will get something different. And that links to the temperature setting I showed you before. So you can't actually set the temperature for these models because it's, you know, built in as the coding assistant, but you will get something different. And so, yeah, every time I run this, I get a slight variation. That's why including as much information in your prompt is really important. Because of that, the less information you give, the more the model can experiment and do something new. You know, good example here is, you know, this one is blue, where the previous one was kind of like a light color scheme. We didn't specify that, right? So if you want to have a bit more control, then you can add that. You know, say I want a white background with my primary color is blue or green.
Do you think people who are playing around with this before the actual day, is it better to do one big prompt to start and then refine it, or a smaller one or lots of smaller ones? Is there any better approach to doing it that kind of delivers a better outcome?
In my opinion, I think it really depends on where you're at, right? If you just started a project and you don't have too many ideas, right, and you need some inspiration, then I think smaller prompts can be a fantastic way to start, right? You know, before I put in this prompt, yeah, I may have had a few ideas about how I could build this type of application. I'll go back to this one because I think it's a really good example of it. But, you know, out of the gate, I have a ton of ideas already here, you know? If I didn't have any ideas before, I could probably think, oh, like, yeah, daily streak is quite cool. The way they've displayed it on the homepage is great. Or this AI financial tip, like this is pretty cool. Or trivia. I may have not had that idea. So if you need ideas, smaller prompts can be a really good way to just get some inspiration. Again, it took like 5 minutes to get set up. So you could spend half an hour just generating loads of different examples to get some inspiration. But if you have an idea of what you want to achieve, or there's a product out there that's similar, then, you know, have a bigger prompt, include some images of the style of UI that you want. And so, yeah, it does vary. But if you know exactly what you want, yes, the more detail, the better. So I'm going to quickly jump back to slides, just so I can go through the next part. So 2 seconds. So the next thing I want to talk about is Firebase Studio. Now, we have AI Studio, and now we've actually added the capability to build applications. And in my opinion, Google AI Studio is a much better product if you're just in that prototyping phase. Now, where Firebase Studio differs is that it's better when you're trying to build kind of a full end-to-end application that's going to have end users. The reason being is Firebase has a bunch of pre-made products that makes it super easy to get set up when building applications that have things like authentication. So you probably want users to be able to log in to your application using something like Google. It could be another identity provider, it could be logging in with their Apple account. Firebase already has all of that set up. And so when you're using Firebase Studio, it's very easy for you to then plug in with those things. The other stuff we have is like databases. So, you know, Google AI Studio doesn't have a database product. That's a Google Cloud product. And so you would obviously have to go in there and spin that up yourself. With Firebase Studio, it's much easier to do, and you can get it set up in a few minutes. And so Firebase Studio, just to kind of make it super clear, like Google AI Studio is fantastic for prototyping and building applications. But if you want to build something that's a bit more enterprise ready, or something that's a bit more of a product that you can actually put in front of users, then Firebase Studio is a good option. And so I'll kind of showcase now a bit of what that journey would look like, and also how you can get started with it. So again, I have built 2 kind of different examples, and we'll go through both of those in a moment. But let's use that same prompt we had from before. I'm just going to quickly copy that over and see how this does. And now, one thing I generally see is that Firebase Studio doesn't look as nice in terms of the UI aspect. but we can play around with that and try and improve that.
Could you,
so you can
zoom
see
in a little bit?
Yes, sorry. So you can see I've got the exact same prompt here. And as I've started putting text in, we already have this improved prompt bio. And so what I can do is I can click this. And what it's going to do is use Gemini to improve our prompt just to see if there's anything that we've missed. And so we can see here, a lot of it is pretty much the same already. One thing it's added is a color scheme. Now, a vibrant green and gold color scheme doesn't sound the best to me, but we'll go with it anyway, just to see how it looks. And you'll see as well, like once you actually do this, before it starts jumping in and building stuff, it will ask you for some feedback on its plan. And that just helps you wasting a bunch of time of it generating a project that you're not too happy with.
Can you
so
also
you can see
use your personal account for Firebase Studio?
Yeah, so very similar to Google AI Studio, you just log in using your account and you'll have access to a lot of stuff for free. So one thing to note about Firebase Studio is that it is in preview, meaning it's not finished. We've released it to the public early so that we can get feedback and see how people are using the application. And so because of that, it's free. You will have a limit on how many projects you can create, but you should be fine. I think the max right now is free. And so, yeah, that's more than enough for you to play around with, and you can obviously delete any projects you're no longer using. So if you want to play around with it and then delete that project afterwards, then you can do that. So you can see kind of this app blueprint that it's created. It's giving us the name of FinQuest and a few of the key features that it's going to include. So budgeting tools, financial trivia, daily challenges, and gamified progress. And one thing it also has is smart nudges, which is the LLM, and will analyze your spend and suggest financial decisions. And you can see it's going to use Gemini for that. Again, we have our quite interesting color scheme here, so it'll be interesting to see. And yeah, it's just selected a bunch of things and showed you which Firebase products it's going to use. So first you have Gemini, and then you also have GenKit, which is a frame kit that we have that just helps make it easier to access different AI models. So obviously we have many different models. We have our Gemini models, we have our image generation models. GenKit just brings that under one unified interface, so that it makes it super easy.
Is there an easy way to use these tools to create some data, kind of dummy data within the app themselves?
Yep. So my recommendation there is just use the Gemini chat that's available online. You can do it in Google AI Studio as well. So I'll jump back to that actually and quickly just showcase a very quick example. One thing I often do is I like to generate data sets that are in JSON, for example. So I may want to have some mock data. I can use something called structured output, which allows me to force Gemini to respond with JSON. So I usually will go to the visual editor, and what I'll do is okay, I want an array. So I'll say I want an array of objects. And then what I can do is define what that will look like. So let's say I call this, I don't know, properties. And then this is going to be like name, description, and then price, whoops. And then I'll just select data type. So this will be a number, this will be string, this will be string. And I'll save this. And then I can say generate a list of 5 fake property listings. And so you'll see the output is JSON. So that's a very quick way. I've just now have a sample data set that I could take and copy and then put that in my application if I'm prototyping. I don't have real world data straight away. So I'll jump back to here. So I'll click prototype this app. Now this will take a while. I noticed that AI Studio is a bit faster in how it generates, but this will take like 2 minutes or so. So I'll jump over to an example I have. I have 2 examples. So
how long would be too long if you were waiting and it looked like it wasn't doing anything?
I'd say more than 5 minutes. One of the good things you'll see, it constantly will give you progress. So you'll see these files updating. And so if it gets stuck, usually you'll get an error anyway, and you'll be able to retry. But if you've been here for like 5 minutes and nothing has happened, then I'd say, yeah, that's a bit too long. I think with this example that I have here, it only took about 2 minutes to actually get to build something. But you can see it's 16 different files, so it can be a little while. Now, again, just for transparency, again, we use the exact same prompt here. I've only given one piece of feedback because I want to showcase you the general workflow. But you can see I've just asked it to build the application. Again, I think it chose the same name. Yeah, it chose the same name. And again, just built it. And this is what we had. And so you can see here now we have this dashboard. So we have this different saving sprints. So apparently I'm saving for a dream vacation to Japan. Again, we have different badges that we can see. We have some sort of trivia thing. I know the answer to this question, so got that one correct. Let's see if it generates. So again, that works quite well. We have a budget board. This looks quite interesting. And then again, we have this nudge board. So let's see this. Let's see what happens here when I do this. I'm not quite sure. So you can see an error here. So we can click here. And one thing you'll see is when we look at the error, it will say it's detecting an error. We can actually fix that. Now, the reason this is failed is because I haven't passed an API key. But you can get the API key directly from Google AI Studio. So I won't do this, so I don't link my API key, but you can click Get API Key here, and you'll see your API keys will be here, or you can create a new one. And again, if you're using the free tier, it's very simple. It's just clicking that button. But if you do want a higher rate limits, then you can, link your billing account if you do want to pay for some of the models. So I won't fix that error just because, as I said before, it is intended. I haven't given an API key, but let's just navigate around the UI and see what else we was able to generate. Now, one thing I'll say from my experience is sometimes this interface can be a bit slow, but right now it seems pretty standard. So if you click something, if this thing is loading, it means it's doing something. And so you just have to be patient. So you can see we have a budgets page. We have a savings page, which is quite cool. Rewards. And the trivia section as well. That's dedicated to what we spoke about before, and it looks like the questions are being repeated. And so again, you can go into coding if you want. Like, you can modify the actual code. One thing here you'll see is switch to code. I can do this, and what this will do is actually give you a code editor that you can run directly in the browser. And so if you don't have any of this stuff installed locally, or you don't have a very powerful computer, then you can do all of this in the browser, and you can see that we have a bunch of different code here that we can go in and change. And so if I go into the UI, you can see we have all of the different components that were created as a result of our prompting. And so hopefully I've kind of showed you those two ways that it can be very quick to get up and running. And then once you get to this point, it's all about just giving feedback and changing things, right? We showed before how, the text wasn't exactly how we wanted it. In this example, and this happens a few times I've noticed, is sometimes you have a menu bar, but it won't actually link to the pages. So I just gave this feedback and was able to correctly update it so that we did have the ability to navigate to different pages.
So this is really great for kind of designing something from scratch very, very quickly. What steps would you take from here then? Because obviously, like, this UI UX is very basic. How would you go about improving that? Would that be someone needs to use code to do that, or can you continue to kind of refine it using prompts as well in terms of like the design?
So that can be done directly in this console still. So maybe you give me a use case or something that you would like to see in the UI, and I can go ahead and kind of maybe showcase how we'll do that. Maybe let's find like the savings page is quite bland. I can see we have no way to add new savings goals. Do you want to use that as a use case?
Yeah.
So what I can do here on this page, let's first think about what we want to do. I think it would be pretty nice if we had a button like at the top of the page that was like, add goal, and that would allow me to create different savings plans. So in this case, I can say, I would like to add a button to the savings page that will allow me to create a new saving goal. I would like to have support for multiple savings goals. And so we'll see. So as I said, it can take a bit of time to generate, but we'll give it a moment. Matt, if you have any questions while it's loaded, feel free to ask away.
So in the run up to the event, and straight away people can start using their personal Google accounts to be able to access all of these tools, which are all free. In the run up to the event, though, we'll be able to give people access to Google accounts where people can share amongst their team a particular project that they're working on as well. Is there anything different in that kind of setup and experience with how people interact with stuff versus how you're showing on the screen?
So for the most part, it's exactly the same. And then the reason being is, again, when you use Google Cloud, you will log into a Google account. And so when we provide Google accounts for the sake of hackathons, you'll be able to just log into those. And the benefit there is that you actually have the ability to use things like Gmail or Notebook LM and some of our other AI products as well. And so, yeah, users won't be restricted in that front. One thing that we also offer to people is if you haven't used Google Cloud before and you sign up for an account, you will have $300 in credits as well. And so that is like another option that you can do to play around with Google as well if you want to use it for personal stuff or the hackathon or just learn new different tools. So I can see like now we've given the input and we actually have something back. It's a good sign that we see two things here. So let's see if this works how we want. So add a new savings goals. I think emergency fund could be a good one here. Emergency fund. Let's say we want to save $5,000 in this case, and the deadline, let's set it for, I don't know, the end of September. So it says it's been created, but I don't see anything updated in the console. So let's give this as feedback. After I created a new savings sprint, I didn't see a new card appear. The saving page. Why was this? And can you fix it?
Does this have a similar ability where you could share this externally then if someone else wants to look at it, like in the AI Studio?
Yep. So again, if you have your account, you can share things. So you can see I can click this button and it will actually open it in an entirely different page. And so now I can actually see what it would look like if it was deployed. You'll see also on this page, we have a publish button. Now I'm logged in with my Google account and you can see there, it says I'm not, all users are not allowed to publish. So right now I can't do that. But that is something that the product will support through Firebase as well. Firebase has something called app hosting, which allows you to deploy like Next.js applications in a very simple way. And so that's what the publish feature will be allowed.
And once it's published, can you still edit it in real time using the prompts?
Yeah, so anything you do in the studio will only be in studio. So if I have a published version, like this could be a real application I have deployed, I can make as many changes here as I want. And then once I'm happy with it and I want to deploy it to other people, I can click the publish button. If I want like a deployed version that I can play around with, then again, you have this version, which you just click and it will open it in a separate tab. And we do offer stuff for the bit more tech savvy that want to have like separate different environments for like testing and production, then Firebase has support for all of those things as well. And we can see we've got a response now. So before we just asked it to add a button, and now we've spoken about we want a new card to appear. So let's see, I'm just gonna do some gibberish here and select, I don't know, 17th of September, add goal. And we can see it was actually able to do that. So it's quite nice to see that, we just had an idea for a new feature. We're able to add it pretty much into two single prompts. One thing I recommend is kind of sticking to this frame. Before, we just said we want to add a button. Then we said we want it to appear. I think when you're working with these models, it's quite good to give it one thing at a time. If you give it too much, it can get a bit confused. And so I like to just stick to one instruction at a time. So I'm going to jump back to the slides now and just kind of talk about Vertex AI. Now, I'm aware that not everybody would want to use AI tools and some people want to build out things for themselves. And so this section is mainly targeted towards those people who want to access the best of the best and be able to build their own custom agents. I think the second example that we had for the different tasks you can work on will be fantastic for what I'm about to talk about. And that's all around building agents. Now, we have kind of three core products that are purely focused on agentic AI. One is Agent Development Kit. That's an open source SDK that you can use to build agents. The second thing is Agent Engine, and this is a fully managed environment that you can deploy your agents into. I'll go into a bit more detail in a moment on those. But the last thing we have is Agent Garden, which is kind of like a repository of agents that we have that you can play around with. And maybe in the future, it'll be something that you can deploy your own agents to as well. You can see on the left and the right, there are other things that we have. So grounding and RAG, enterprise context, but I won't focus on those too much just because they can be dedicated for our entire talk by themselves. So the first thing I'll talk about is ADK. So ADK is a flexible and modular framework for developing and deploying AI agents. Now, some of you are probably familiar with other open source agent frameworks like LangChain or LangGraph. And where I think ADK really shines is that green part, where we talk about that tight integration with Google, the Google ecosystem. Now, Google's a company that serves billions of users, and in all of our applications, we have a lot of AI-based features. Google Search is a fantastic example of that. When you make a Google search, you will see a Gemini, response that has been generated. And so we have all of the infrastructure that we need to be able to deploy these models and serve, millions of users. And Google Cloud is all about, sharing that technology with the wider world. And that's one thing you'll get through ADK is, Vertex AI has a bunch of inbuilt components. So for example, we have a memory store, which essentially allows you to just say, I want my agent to be able to remember conversations. So if my user has a conversation on Monday and then on Thursday, it can memorize things that the user has said. With one line of code, you can plug that into your agent. Again, I won't do a full deep dive on ADK and how you can do some of these things because there is documentation that covers it. And again, it's usually an entire separate talk that takes about an hour to go through all of the features. But if you want to play around with it, definitely have a look at documentation. And I'm more than happy to have conversations and support anyone that's trying to experiment with any of these tools. The other thing to zoom in on the agent engine, as you can see here, it essentially provides you with everything you need out of the box to deploy and manage an agent that's being used by people. You can see we have the storage part, so managing user sessions and memory, as I said before. And we also have different components that allow you to do code execution. And so if you want your model to be able to generate code, then it can do that. There are some limitations because those features are in preview, but it is something that's possible. The observability piece here is super important as well. This is all around allowing you to observe how users are interacting with your agents and maybe detect performance issues as well. And so it's a full end-to-end platform. It's not just for deploying a test model. If this is something that you seriously want to deploy and have people use and make it super scalable, then you have all of the support you need in all of the different areas, whether that's evaluating performance, observability, as I said. And then we also have support for directly making MCP calls to different tools, as well as some of our pre-built tools as well. And so if you want to integrate your model or your agent with Google Search, then you can do that straight away as well through our pre-built tools. And then we also allow you to extend that with your own.
Can you access this through a personal login as well?
Yep. So again, Agent Engine Agent Engine requires you to have a Google Cloud account. Again, if you create your own, you will have the credits to play around with it, and we're going to try and support you in having an environment where you can do that. But a good link to your question is like, okay, well, how do you get started with this? We have something called the Agent Starter Pack, which in my opinion is super powerful. And this is what I always use when I'm building agentic applications. I'll quickly share my screen and show you this repo in a bit more detail. I'll zoom in so it's a bit easier to see. And the goal of Agent Starter Pack essentially is to make it super easy to start a new project where you're going to be building generative agents. So you can see here the main pillars we try and cover is first launching. So we have pre-built templates that allow you to get up and running very quickly. The next thing is experimentation. So if you want to do evaluations to measure the performance of your agents, you can do that. Next is deploying, right? So you probably want to deploy this to a production-ready environment. Cloud Run, we spoke about, is what AI Studio allows you to deploy to. Agent Engine is more specific to agents. It has a lot of the same functionality, but I showed you on the slide all of the other stuff it includes. And then we also have the monitoring, observability, and CI/CD. For those that are a bit more tech savvy or have some more experience in software engineering, you'll probably understand these concepts, but it's all around how do you build a robust pipeline so that you can keep shipping new features to your users without causing disruption. And then again, customization, right? If you want to play around with templates or create your own, then you're capable to do that. And I think the key thing to highlight here is like it only takes a minute to get set up. You run these 3 commands and you will automatically have a UI you can play around with. I will quickly try and show you an example. We do have, I think it's in here. If I go into Python agents, there is one that I wanted in particular. I think it might be this one. It's not the exact one.
So this is generated from that starter kit.
Yeah, so a lot of these are taken a little bit further, but you can just copy and paste these as your own example. I'll show you the templates first that we have that you can start with. Where are they? This is the wrong Git repo. So you can see the different templates we have here. So first we have an ADK base, which is just a super simple, environment if you don't want anything out of the box. The one that I find super interesting is like this ADK Gemini full stack. So I'll try to open this in a separate example. So here we go. So this is a full deep research type product. So you can see in the video here, this UI that they're using is actually part of the ADK. So it's not just code that it's going to generate. It's going to give you a user interface that you can play around with to debug and make sure everything works as expected. And so you could have this straight away. So if you wanted to build like a deep research tool for finance, then this could be a fantastic place to start. And so again, it has all of the details that you need to set it up as well. So they're very useful resource for anybody looking to build agents. So that's everything I wanted to go through on the kind of slides and the demos. Matt, I didn't know if you had any questions that you wanted to finish up on.
Yeah, so you're going to be there on the day. So
Yep.
People can, I'm sure they'll have tons of questions for you and might need some help and so on. So you'll be around on the day. And then in terms of the access to all these different applications you've shown, people can just use their standard Google account to log into it for the time being. And then in the next week or two, we'll send out some Google Cloud accounts that teams can work on projects collaboratively.
Yep, that's right.
Cool. Okay, I'm just going to finish off and share a few more slides, be a few more minutes, and then we're done. But in terms of the hackathon challenge itself, so you will be in a team. There'll be like 5 to 7 people. Those teams will work together before the event and work together on the event in person on the day. You'll be supported by the mentors as well, who'll be there. People like Fabian, who've got lots of experience, as well as quite a lot of the speakers that are going to be there on the day. So some of the founders and CEOs of the fintech companies, they'll be there to help as well. Fabian showed a variety of different applications. Like the last one is if you're a coder, whereas some of the earlier ones, you don't need any coding experience at all. So the teams will be put together, will have a mix of experience, some people who can code and some people that are tech savvy but might not be able to code as well. So the idea is you work collaboratively as a team, and then you may take different roles between you within a team. So before the event, we'll give you access to all of these Google tools and accounts and so on that we've showed you. But like we said, you can use your personal account if you want to get started at the moment. There'll be detailed problem statements that are going to be sent out soon, which will have all of the key features and requirements. Any further details around those particular challenges, they will be shared at the beginning of August. And then on the day itself, you will have 3 hours in the afternoon to work on your projects. So the way the day is going to run, the first half of the day is workshops, fireside chats, panel discussions, lots of networking, so you can get to meet yourself in person, all the founders and CEOs that are going to be there. But then in the afternoon, then it'll be the hackathon. And those 3 hours, really, we're expecting you to come with a project that you've already worked on. And it's very much just polishing it off those last few hours and then working on your pitch, rather than kind of turning up on the day and doing it from scratch, which you can do, but you're not going to win anything. People tried to do that last time and they kind of failed miserably. At the end of that 3-hour session, the mentor who's looking after you, they will select out of the teams that they're working from kind of one team to go forward to pitch in front of essentially like the Dragon's Den, where there's going to be the mentors, the judges, the people from the day. They're going to be judging you on a scorecard based on a variety of different metrics, which again I'll share when I share details of the hackathon. But basically, it's the application, the creativity, how different is it, how unique is it, Is there a good go-to-market plan? What's your pitch on the day like? Do you work together as a team? All these different things. So the application you're building is one part of the puzzle. There's other parts to it as well, which you'll get judged on. When you are pitching, what we're expecting to see is a demoable app and a go-to-market plan. So you're thinking about the user, not just the application, the user, and how you're going to take that to market. And then what we do say, if you want to win, we strongly recommend you start working on this as soon as possible. As soon as you've got your team, work with your team to be able to start to make some strides on this before you get to the event itself, so you can maximize that time. And really, you want to be picking the brains of the mentors that are around, because they might be able to give you that extra 2% that you need to win. In terms of what can you win, so there's different companies we're working with, Payable, iPushPull, LSEG, Rhymes, Kepler Chevron, and New Squawk have all donated and contributed prizes, which is anything from mini internships, insight days, mentoring over a period of time, as well as kind of event tickets. Like Payable, for example, has got tickets for the Web Summit, which is in October, I think, in Lisbon. They're worth €750 each, and they're contributing those as prizes. So lots of really great prizes for the top 3 winning teams. There should be about 10 winning teams. So lots to do there. The pre-event checklist, what we would say is there's a Working Fintech WhatsApp group. So do join that, and you'll kind of see the flow of information about the event and other events that we're doing. After you've been allocated a team, which will be at the beginning of August, we suggest you coordinate with that team, have a few calls, set up a WhatsApp group yourself, and it's good if you can have it as a subset of the main Working Fintech community chat. When you're doing your team as well, just think about what each person's role is, because you'll probably have someone who's an advanced coder in your team, and you might have someone who doesn't code. So think about what person is best suited for what role. And it's not just about coding and development here. There's the sales, the marketing, the project management, organizing and coordinating, who's the best person at talking and pitching on the day. Lots of different things to think about. You can start using those Google tools, like we've said a few times, straight away. And very much now, just start thinking about how you can build. And just to finish up, there's a couple of links here. There's a video that we did from the last hackathon prep session, which talks a bit more about the type of people you might need in a team, how to manage the team, other type of tools you might want to be using as well. So check out that first video. Do follow us on LinkedIn as well. That's the main kind of social channel that we use. We are also on Twitter and YouTube and Instagram, but LinkedIn's the main one. And you can see some videos as well at the bottom from some of the previous hackathons that we run, just to give you an idea of kind of what it's like on the day. And lastly, thank you for tuning in today, and we really look forward to seeing you in person at the Working Fintech AI Summit on the 29th of August. So again, thank you, Fabian, for running through all those tools, and thanks for being there on the day. Thank you for hosting us at your lovely Google offices in King's Cross, and also thanks to our supporters, Payable, iPushPull, and the HG Foundation.
Thanks a lot, Matt. Looking forward to it.